What up, y'all? Sauce here once again, Sauce and Company Podcast. Appreciate y'all checking in. Follow me at Smitty Sauce on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram and Twitter at Smitty Sauce. And of course, the YouTube page, YouTube channel is Sauce and Company. And, there's a Facebook page too, but that joint don't get too much love. I don't know why. Somebody kind of lazy on that end, but it is what it is. Anyway, today's company hails from the ATL shouting. Strange how we've had two AT aliens in the first seven, 8 episodes, but that's a lot of black people down there. I mean, what can I say? This guy is a contract attorney. He's also he's an owner and founder and owner, I would say, CEO of Confectionist Bakery in Atlanta. I don't know how those two worlds go together, but we're going to find out today from Mr. Monty Garside. What up, bro? What's in the cup, though?
I wish I could tell you it's a beer from a brewery up here in Kennesaw, just north of Atlanta, that I got for a bottle share event that was supposed to happen a few weeks ago. And then I forgot to bring it to the bottle share event because I was also catering desserts. And we were supposed to, both Mo and I were supposed to go, and then our babysitter fell through, and so I went, but it threw everything off. You know the drill.
I do.
So I left the beer at the house, and so the upside to that is I get to sip on it today.
Indeed.
I can't remember what it was. I got it in a growler, so I went to a spot. I was like, "Hey, let me try. Just put me on to something." So they put something in a growler, and I left with it. So,
word. So how's it going in the A, bro? Like, how's the coronavirus, COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, like any place with with this highly populated, man, we've been hit pretty hard. I think we're up above 16,000 confirmed cases in the state now, about 600, almost 650 deaths. So it's hit the state hard, the metro area, Atlanta metro area in particular. And so we've got some interesting things going on with conflicting messages from local government versus the governor, and this ain't a political show, so I'm not gonna get into that. But
you don't want to talk about your guy? I don't want to talk about your guy. I ain't trying to take you down that road, bro.
I didn't vote for him, so I can't really I can't really call him my guy.
Understood.
But yeah, I mean, it's so that's the downside of it. I think the upside, I think people, I end up leaving the house more often than I normally would because I got to still go to the store. People are still placing orders, and we're still, so safely navigating the streets has been something that I've been doing for the last month. And, I think generally people are, at least in the areas that I've been traveling, people have been very aware not to violate social distancing. I mean, even at the grocery store, people are maintaining their distance. People are being careful, at least as best as they understand to.
Right.
People have been cordial and patient and all those things. So at the ground level, it's a much worse situation than I'm seeing because I'm not at the hospitals, and I'm not haven't obviously been directly impacted by the virus itself. But just as far as day to day, I think people are aware and are trying to be as careful as they can be. But there's a bit of confusion too. I think people aren't really sure if what they're doing is the correct thing. They're not really sure if they're, and I'm sure it's no different in VA where you are. I mean, it's
really it's really wild in these streets, for real. You say that people are respecting the social distancing. Not in my attempts to go to the grocery store.
Really?
People tend to walk like they just. Not only do they come near you, they constantly walk past you as if they're in a rush. Like, it's the store, you're not going anywhere. So let me get over here. And not that, I'm not gonna have a fit if somebody goes past me, like, but they're taking it to a level where it's like multiple people in one area and just congregating. It's like, I don't understand it. It's like people don't understand that it's a real deal going on.
It is very real, very real. And I definitely know some frontline healthcare workers that have explained to me, man, that it does not look good. It's really not. It's really not good. You know, Monique, before we got pregnant, she was a social worker at a hospital at Emory University Hospital here in town, and she left after her maternity leave was over, basically. So I'm in a lot of ways thankful
Right.
um, for that. She's got colleagues that are still there that are kind of scared, and understandably so. And we have a ton of friends just that are in the healthcare, both at the hospital level and then at the public health management level, that are just not optimistic about how collectively the country is handling
Agreed.
all of it. Which is
Agreed.
praying that that we get through it, and that all the recklessness that's going on doesn't make it as bad as we fear it could be.
Thanks. Now, I usually just try to get in and get out of that topic because I mean it's the obligatory topic. I gotta ask about how things are going. But you say different people in healthcare as I do. What do you think? I'm not trying to put you on any type of spot or anything, but what do you think about the fact of how things are being handled as far as from a state level as opposed to a federal level? If that's even something you want to speak on.
Yeah, I mean, I it seems that there are certain states that are doing what they believe the president wants done, and then there seems to
Right.
be other states that are doing they they can with the best that they can to respond to what they are seeing happening in their own state. And so I don't really know what can be done about that. I
Mhm.
think at a personal level, individually, each of us just has the responsibility to be safe and mindful of our other person. I'm personally not as worried about contracting COVID-19.
Right.
And if I were to contract it, I feel relatively confident that I'd be able to uh, get through it without a hospitalization. I could be wrong about that, but that's not what I go to sleep worrying about at night. What does concern me more is for people like my mom down in Tampa, who I begged, and she's being smart. She's not really leaving the house unless she has to, but she's coming up on 70 years old. She's 69. And while she's in good health, she has like mild hypertension, mild diabetes that she manages well with medication,
Hmm.
but technically in the vulnerable population. And so, I don't know if you heard that Florida, they opened beaches back up yesterday.
Yes, they did.
So now it's like, when I texted my mom, I was like, so now I just really need you to not go anywhere. Like, I sent her, join Instacart, have them deliver your groceries, like go outside to stretch your legs and walk around the neighborhood, but just,
Right.
don't. And she's not planning to. So I think that people are losing sight of the fact that even if you aren't likely to get it, the fact that you can contract it, not be symptomatic, maybe not even feel sick,
Hmm.
and pass it to someone who is vulnerable, to not even consider that's to me is what is, I guess, the most appalling about all that. And the thing is that people have the attitude towards certain situations that's set by whatever their leaders are telling them. So if your leaders are saying that it's okay to go to the beach, it is actually, I'm certain that it's possible to socially distance at the beach. I socially distance at the beach anyway, right? Like,
Right.
but 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 what it signals to people who may not truly understand the gravity of the situation is, oh, if it's safe to go to the beach, for those people to go to the beach, then I can just go do this other stuff, right? And so I think what's being lost is the urgency that we and the seriousness that we need to take to just be disciplined in our movements for a few weeks and see if we can get this thing headed in the opposite direction. Um,
Exactly.
that's the part I think that is most troubling to me. I get everybody's freaking out and they're worried about the economy and all that, but the economy is hitting the toilet regardless. And it's how equipped are we going to be able to get out of it, that
Right.
it um I think what we need to be mindful of, and not thinking short-sightedly, and which I fear is happening right now.
That's it though. That's it because we're and that's not even looking at what happens when the doors are open and people can actually go out again, and how that whole thing translates. Does it, go backwards, or does it actually get better at that time? So I'm gonna be in the house myself. I'm gonna be right in the crib. Y'all ain't got to worry about seeing me.
Yeah,
Store, necessary trip,
yeah,
mom. That's it. I'm good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're being pretty much being safe here. I obviously leave the house the most, because I've got to go to the store for a bunch of reasons. But I have a very specific routine and regimen for leaving the house and returning and wiping stuff down
Yeah.
all kind of stuff. It's very, very, very regimented, and we're down to using just one car, just for that very reason, just so that we can just kind of narrow the
Mm.
the potential exposure. And so that's been our world for the last. And I mean, we're prepared. I mean, it's not fun. Most birthday is next Friday, so like we stuck at the house, so we making
Right.
alternate plans to celebrate her, just the two of us and the little one. But that's to me a small price to pay, for being safe and being conscientious of our neighbors and our fellow
Absolutely.
citizens.
Respect that. Respect that. Yeah, my daughter's birthday was a couple weeks ago, so I do understand. Do
Yeah.
understand. So you mentioned having to go out for the bakery, Confectionist Bakery. How did we get into the bakery deal, bro? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, man. I, I said, as a kid growing up here in Atlanta, man, my grandmother, my father's mother, was the greatest cook and baker that God ever created.
oh yeah.
Cannot convince me otherwise. I mean, she was just amazing. She catered my parents' wedding. She catered like if you were having a family special event, like one of my cousins is an opera singer, trained classical singer. She did concerts and stuff like that.
Mhm.
My grandmother did like her special events, all that kind of stuff. I mean, she was just great. She ran the kitchen in the month of January at our church, every year, and there was an
She
uptick
was
in
official.
attendance, in the month of January when she would do it. So I grew up, really just loving, obviously her, but loving her cooking and her baking. And she did the whole spread. She and my great grandmother did the whole spread at all the major holidays. And so as I got older, I really, I wanted to learn how to do that. And as the elders in your family, pass away, and, you aren't as joined. I mean, we used to have 40, 50 people at the house. And then that shrinks down, and then, you don't make it a few years. And so I had a real nostalgia for the things that she cooked and baked. And when I was in college, we had been away from Atlanta for almost 10 years at that point, and I really just kind of had a desire to learn how to do it. And so I was able to reverse engineer some of her stuff, like her potato salad and collard greens. I just knew how it tasted and smell, and I just would do it until I got it.
Right.
But I could never do cake, right? And she baked all kinds of cake. Her staple was like pound cake. She would throw them in the freezer. We'd come visit. She would, let us have one. We would take them back home, the whole nine. So I remember I asked her one day. I said, "Hey, Grandma, why don't you show me how to make a pound cake?" Her exact words to me were, "As long as you got me, you don't need to know how to make it."
Mm.
So what you supposed to say? I'm not gonna tell my grandmother, but you gonna die
They
one
will
day.
be here forever.
She
Right.
ultimately did, right? So that was where it was, and I mean, she took most of those recipes with her to the grave. I found out later that in life that I have a couple of girl cousins. There are not a lot of girls on my dad's side of the family, and a couple of my great uncles had daughters. So my grandmother tried to pass stuff along to them,
Hmm.
and most of them didn't have a lot of interest. But I was the only one that really, really showed interest, and she wouldn't show me, I guess, because I was a boy. So I had to learn how to make cake, and I got a recipe, and it turned out awful. And if you know anything about me, I'm I won't say I'm obsessive, but I don't like to not do well at something that I care about doing.
Right.
So it was unacceptable to be my grandmother's child, grandmother's grandchild, and do such a bad job at my first attempt at making a cake. So I scrapped everything. I threw my pans away. I went and got like good quality, a good quality pan. I scoured the internet for a recipe that I felt like I, would know. And then I called my mom and I said, "Hey, Ma, do you remember how grandmother used to make those cakes?" And so she said, "Well, I think she used to do this, she used to do that." And then it started to kind of come back to me. Then I found a recipe, and it was literally like the Matrix, man. I realized I had watched my grandmother bake a pound cake probably 30 times, but I had never seen it from the first step till it was coming out of the oven.
Right.
I, all out of sequence. So I'm looking at this recipe, and I kid you not, it was literally like they were all starting to and all sequence. I was like, I think this is it. So I
Right.
tried it, and this was the very next day after my failed attempt.
Oh, okay.
I tried it, and it came out perfect.
Wow.
And from there, I made it for a couple people. My grandmother used to make cake for like the holidays. She would sell them to make extra money to buy gifts for her grandkids, her nieces and
Mhm.
nephews. And so I said, I'll try that. I'll make you a little extra cash. And I mentioned it to a friend that I had made a cake for, and she said, "Actually, no, you should do this as a business for real. I'll go in. Matter of fact, I'll buy all the ingredients." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, what are you talking about?" Well, it turns out her mom had owned a bakery for like almost 30 years at that point, and she just really liked what I did and wanted to support it. So she helped me start the business. This is almost 6 years ago now, and yeah, so that's how it got started. And it started out I was just doing pound cakes, and then I said, well, we're in the South. People can get cake. They got aunties and grandmas and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, what am
Mhm.
I gonna do that's gonna make somebody want to buy my cake? So that's when I started trying to do like different flavors that you wouldn't necessarily find at your local bakery or find within your own family.
Right.
And from there doing that, and then I dabbled over into layer cakes and stuff like that, and it just kind of took off, man. I mean, people just kept liking it, so I kept making it, and
That
it
make
ended up being released to me in a great homage to my grandmother, and it's really kind of a relaxing, thing for me to do. And I think about her a lot, and my late father and other family members that have passed away, remembering those times at the dinner table. It's a therapeutic thing for me, quite honestly, and I really do the business not really to make a bunch of money, but just as one of the things that I can pass on legacy wise to anybody in my family that wants to learn, because we don't have trust
man.
funds and all that kind of stuff. I'm working on that, but that doesn't exist at the moment. So but one of the things we do have is we have our talents, we have our stories, we have our experiences, and so this is one of those things that I just didn't want to die with her, and it did die with her, and I kind of breathed some life
Revive
into.
the thing.
Uh, so that's what we've been doing. We've been rocking, like I said, for almost 6 years now.
Wow. Man, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing from the family part to it being something that you love doing and
Yeah,
it brings you something as well. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
man. So that's the I mean, I'm sure that's your baby, but that's your side hustle, I would guess you would call it.
Yeah.
Because in reality, you are an attorney,
Yes.
contract attorney. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like me, what is a contract attorney specifically?
So I do contract work for a couple of different companies, and every now and then a couple of different law firms as needed. It's kind of like being a hired gun. It's this the way that our profession has evolved. There's a couple of pathways to earn a living, and the one that most people know is big law firm. Spend whatever time there, try and make partner. You know,
Hmm.
and what have you. Um, and that wasn't really the track I wanted to be on. After a few years practicing, I realized that's just not what I wanted for myself personally. And so the path I chose was there's a need out there, pretty continuous need that a lot of firms have for seasoned talent that can, manage files, that can participate, that are good team players, that can accomplish tasks that they don't necessarily want to have to, be on their payroll and have benefit, all that stuff, right?
Right.
But they also don't want to have to hold your hand and walk you through every little step, because that's inefficient. And so I found a nice little niche in that I can go, and it gives me an opportunity to engage in the practice of law that I enjoy. I love the work, I really do, but not be bound to uh, an employer that will take more from me than I was willing to give. I'll just say it that way.
That's well stated. That's well stated. How do you and you do other things as well. Like, I mean, you not jump, but you work with different firms and you do other types of law work as well.
Right, right. Yeah, I do. I have a practice of my own that I work with a firm here in town, actually called Regal Legal Services. So I do the bulk of my work I actually do through them, and so that can be anything from, like I said, real estate related litigation to we do a lot of work for HOAs. Um, we do I do some work, some entertainment related work. I have a client that is has a monthly subscription product service. So I do a lot of contract review for that company. Um, I do, just any, I mean, a small business, anything that a small business, small to mid-sized business needs, we can kind of do. And so our firm does some transactional kind of work as well, corporate registrations and real estate closings, those kinds of things. Just, there's the legal services are something that really any person who's in business needs, but you can't. Not everybody can really afford to do, the large law firm where they're charging $600 and $700 an hour. Um,
Right.
that's not economically feasible for a lot of businesses. So there's a real nice sweet spot in there for firms that can provide quality legal services to small businesses who don't have that kind of cash flow, but can afford to, compensate you for your time, for helping keeping them on the right path with their
Gotcha.
business. The last thing, it is very, very expensive to not have good legal representation, and that's not just on the litigation side. That's just period. You want to make sure all your documents are straight, all your contracts have been reviewed by an attorney. You just spend the money to make sure that's right, because it is we clean up messes all the time.
Hmm. I'm gonna say probably save you more money to do it up front as opposed to have to do it on the back end.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Agreed. So you're from ATL, correct?
Yes, yes.
All right. Now, how does a young black male from an ATL end up on a track to law? Not that, like, I probably know more black lawyers than, if I thought about it, I probably could name more than I really think I could.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, I don't know what the percentages are. I'm assuming the percentages are low in the number of black attorneys per
yeah.
state or
Yeah,
whatever.
there are. I don't know the numbers either, but having worked at my share of large firms, yes, there are not a lot of us.
Rare, rare. So how did you even get on this route? Like, was this a dream thing or was it something that came about later on?
It was a dream of mine from about the eighth grade.
Really?
I When I was young, much younger, I thought that I wanted to be a psychologist, because I think being an only child, it makes you being an only child and being a kid who's usually in the minority, it
Hmm.
makes you really observant and perceptive of your surroundings, and really interested in what motivates people's actions, right?
Right.
If that makes sense. So as a kid, I thought that was kind of what I wanted to do. And funny enough, I was I was in 8th grade in PE class. We were playing softball, and our PE coach obviously was the umpire, and she made a bad call. Shout out to Coach Pisano. I love her to this day. We're friends, um, and yeah, she made a bad call. I maintain to this day it was a bad call. I don't remember what it was, but it was wrong. And I disagreed with her call. And she was like, "Yeah, get away from me, kid. Like I made the call. It is what it is." But I laid out precisely why the call was wrong. I wasn't just, I, you know. And after I got through, she looked at me and she said, "With that mouth, you ought to be a lawyer." And I don't think she meant it as a compliment, but
Right.
it actually
Right.
got me thinking. And I went home that day, and I said, I think that's what I want to do. And I remember telling my father, I said, "Hey, I think I might want to be a lawyer." And I'll never forget this. Some of the best advice I ever got. Period. My dad looked at me and said, "Okay." He said, "Well, do you know any lawyers?" I said, "Well, we knew two. There were two we went to church with." And he said, "Okay, well, when you're old enough, I would advise that you find out if either one of them will hire you to follow them around for a little bit, because you should probably go see what lawyers do to make sure that
Mm.
that's actually what I do." And sure enough, as I got in my senior year in high school, as I was coming to getting ready to graduate, I reached out and I got a job as a records clerk. And I worked there every summer after high school, and each summer that I was in college. Um, this is back in the day when law offices and they had a records department, and it was literally like, at the library you have the big crank shelves that you have to,
Mhm.
they're full of. That's how was my first job, making $6 an hour. And when the lawyers of the firm found out that I wanted to go to law school, they would come and sign me out for lunch and go, take me to lunch and ask me questions and give me pointers and things like that. So that was how I stayed on the path towards going to law school. So it was something that I really had a plan for. By the time I got to college and by the time I was graduating college, I already knew that, that this is what I wanted to do.
Man. So that was some great advice, some great fatherly advice that you received.
He was good for that. He was good for that.
Dang. So grew up in ATL. Ended up you went to high school out in Florida, right?
Tampa, Tampa, Florida. Yeah, we moved right as I was getting ready to start junior high school. We moved to Tampa. My mom got a promotion and a transfer. I grew up in an IBM family. Both my parents worked for IBM growing up. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, yeah, and so we moved to Tampa. It was her first opportunity to be a manager, and so we made the decision to make that move. I did not want to go.
Understood.
Not want to go. And I'm glad that we did. It ended up being good for our family. And but I've always loved Atlanta and always knew that I would come back. So yeah.
Gosh. So that led you to Tampa, and then you ended up at FAMU. You, I can't blow past FAMU. I just have to give you a moment. You can speak on FAMU how you want to speak on it.
Yeah.
But you know, we're going to end up at Duke, so I don't want to pass over to HBCU.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny. So I don't think I mentioned my dad was a Morehouse grad, right?
Okay.
Um, my mom was a Duke grad. My mom went to Duke,
Ah,
and so when I was a little kid, we went to a homecoming game. I think it was in 1980, something like that. And we all went up to Durham, and for some reason, I fell in love with Duke, and said I told everybody who would listen that that's where I was going to go to school. So that's all. That's all. That's the only interest I had all through before I understood what it was going to take to get there. That's where I wanted to go to school. So once I got to, and my dad was not about to tell me that no, you can't go to Duke if that's what you should set your sights on. He was going to support that. Um, so he gave up on trying to convince me to go to Morehouse. I got very early in my life. Um, Fast forward to my senior year, I visited and applied to other schools in the South. I applied to Hampton, Sydney, in Virginia, University of Virginia, Wake Forest, and Furman in Greenville, South Carolina. Because I figured I would go to school somewhere in the Carolinas or in Virginia. My mom
Right.
in Southampton County, Virginia, so I spent a lot of time in the Carolinas and in Virginia traveling, visiting family.
Gotcha.
So I applied to Duke, what they call early decision, which means that's where I want to go, and if I get in, I have to go. It's a binding decision. So I applied. The school I went to in Tampa is a prep school, and it's one of the best schools in the state. And so there are kids that go to Duke every year. There are kids that go to Harvard every year. There are kids that go to every Ivy League school, Duke, Vandy, Stanford, Swanee, the whole nine, every year.
Mm.
And so everybody knew when the acceptance letters from all those schools, the day that they came in every year, you knew lockstep. So I applied Duke early decision. I was like, this is where I want to go. About a week before that letter was supposed to come, I got a scholarship to FAMU, which is a whole long story. But I got a scholarship to FAMU at a educational fair down in Tampa. The Florida Classic, Florida FAMU versus Bethune-Cookman used to be in Tampa.
Okay.
And before they moved it back to Orlando. Well, when it was in Tampa when I was a senior in high school. And so they invited all the top Black high school seniors to this educational fair. That's, HBCUs, they do that. They clump it all together. It's a big recruiting event, all that stuff. Classic. So I went to the event thinking, hey, I finally get a chance to get a ticket to the game so I can go see the Marching 100. That was my only motivation for going. I had basketball practice that day, as a matter of fact, because it was over the Thanksgiving break.
Okay.
I had basketball practice later that day. We show up at the event. We were there pretty much all day. And towards the end, before they were about to serve the meal, I realized that like all the little $1,000 and $2,000 scholarships they've been handing out all day were just like, that was just the appetizer. They were handing out the big ticket items later on. So I was like, wait a minute, I might be in the running for this. So sure enough, we're sitting down at the table. We're in the last table in the back of the ballroom. And maybe 2 or 3 people in, they call my name. And when I tell you, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, you probably heard people describe it, where everything is going in slow motion.
Yes.
It's the only time that has ever happened to me, and it is real, dude. I was walking, it was like I couldn't feel my feet. People were clapping in slow motion. I was hearing congratulations. It was wild, man. And I went up and was acknowledged by the president of the university, Dr. Frederick S. Humphreys at the time, and it sparked a frenzied week of what is Monty going to do, right? And so we get to school after the Thanksgiving break that Monday. The letter from Duke, one way or the other, is coming that Saturday.
Right.
And so I go to school. I tell my college counselor what happened. While I'm at school, my dad calls Dr. Humphreys to tell him what's going on because we got to set up a visit to go visit Tallahassee to figure out if we want to do this. So Dr. Humphreys tells my dad, says, listen, I got a message I want you to give to Monty. And my dad relays to me. He says, you tell Monty that I want him here and that if he wants to go to Duke so badly, we'll make sure he gets in. My dad tells me this, and I'm like, okay. Now look, I played sports in high school. I was 5'7" at the time, 145 pounds, soaking wet. So college coaches didn't recruit me to play sports. I was good at them, but that was not. So it felt good to be recruited, but I did not take that man seriously. I was like, he's just saying what he needs to say to get me. But I was flattered. Went up, I visited the campus. Let's just say I was very, very happy with what I saw because I didn't see that at the high school that I went to.
Understood.
and I pretty much made the decision in my own mind once I left campus that I think that's what I was going to take. But I had to think about it. I had to pray about it. Saturday comes, I run out to the mailbox, grab the mail out, and I have a thick envelope from Duke. And I'm like, oh man, this is it. So I walk in the house. My mom was out running errands or something like that. My dad was sitting on one couch. I was sitting on the other. I opened the thing up and I looked at that price tag.
Mm.
I said, oh, I said, we didn't qualify for financial aid. I assumed that we would.
Right.
Um, and I said, man, I can't go to school here. I'll never forget this. And piece of advice number 2, my dad says, listen, you've wanted to go to that school ever since you were basically a baby. Said, don't make that decision based on finances. Like, that's for your mom and I to deal with. If that's where you want to go, that's where you should go, because it's your decision. And I said, you know, Dad, I appreciate that. I said, but y'all have been paying for me to go to school since I was like 3 years old. Y'all take a break. We'll save that money up for law school, but I think I'm going to take the scholarship to family. And I'm so glad that I did, because they took care of me there. They helped me understand how to prepare for a world that was going to be threatened by me, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense because my daughters, well, one's in college now, one's in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we have those discussions, and I've always looked at it. Well, I've heard it said that if I go to a black school, it's not like the real world. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is they prepare you for the real world, even though everybody here is black, well, generally speaking.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And listen, and it's not for everybody. And you should, I mean, you can
Fact.
get a good education wherever, it's your education is yours to have and attain. It absolutely is. So I'm not advocating that, saying and poo-pooing PWIs. I absolutely by no means would I do that. What I will say is that for me at a school like FAMU, it is a place that empowered me to know how to use my talent and my intelligence to power through the obstacles that would be actively put in front of me. That there won't be any time to bellyache about how unfair something is. Just know and assume that it's not going to be fair. And you're going to have to figure out a way around it anyway, because no one's going to care. They probably won't believe you anyway. So that's a reality that is very jarring the first time you're confronted with it. And fortunately for me, I was confronted with it while I was in college, so that it didn't come as a surprise to me when I got out into the real world and was responsible for myself financially and otherwise. Um, and it's something that I've observed in others that maybe weren't as prepared. And again, I'm not saying that you can't get that learn that at a PWI or within your own family. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, I got it when I was in Tallahassee. I'll
I can
just
feel that. I can
I'm
feel that.
forever grateful for that experience because of it.
It's interesting that you said. I mean, your choice of words was power through as opposed to like circumvent. Because I thought that's where you were going. You would think
So
when you think you're like
sometimes you do
around.
circumvent, but circumvention can get you in trouble.
Right.
Sometimes you literally have to power through, and sometimes you just got to shut it down and find another way. I mean,
Gotcha.
that's just it's not fair, but it is. I mean, I'll say this: I learned a very very hard lesson when my father passed, which was 2 weeks before I left for FAMU, right?
Mm.
And the conversation I had to have with God was, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? How am I going to stay focused? Because and what came from that conversation was, you don't have a choice. All right, you could show up, be sad, and be distracted, and all of that, and everybody would understand. It is completely reasonable and totally understandable reaction. But 3 years from now, when you're applying to law schools, they're going to look at your grades and they're going to look at your GPA and they're going to look at whatever else is in your application package, and they can empathize and sympathize with your plight.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you don't measure up to what everybody else who's applying the standard that they're at, then you're
Right.
not go. And the worst thing that you can do, or the best thing that you can do to honor your father's memory and honor his legacy, is to finish what you started. And so that was the conversation I had to have myself. So powering through is something that I kind of was learning how to do really kind of when I started college. And so by the time, I kind of got through, I think I had a healthy understanding of what that meant. Doesn't mean that you're not sad. Doesn't mean that you aren't knocked back. It doesn't mean that you know you're down on the ground for a little bit. It doesn't mean that at all. But at some point, the next day is going to happen. The sun is going to show up, and everybody else in the world is going to live their life. You can either participate in the world happening, or you can sit where you're at and feel sorry for yourself. And so that kind of has been a kind of a continuing understanding that I've had to have with myself at different stages in my career and in my personal life. It hasn't all been rosy and easy, and I'm constantly reminded that this is temporary, but everybody else is living their life. So are you going to do the same, or are you going to feel sorry for yourself?
That's real. That's real. I can respect that. And you actually, I mean, as you said, powered through. You powered through on your way to Duke for law school, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you said your mom went to Duke, which is, I really want to, I know we talk about you. How did you can be brief. I mean,
Yeah.
get it all together. Like, I don't know a lot of Black people who had both parents go to prestigious schools
Mm-hmm.
that had to start from somewhere. I mean, of course, it led to you,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it had to come from somewhere before that. Like, how does that?
Yeah. So, it's funny, man. Speaking of my dad was the youngest of two kids. And my grandfather, I didn't know this until later on. My grandfather wasn't around for most of my dad's childhood. He came back around right as my dad was finishing high school. So as a kid, I always had him around. I didn't know.
Gotcha.
Um, but my dad made a decision early in his life that the craziness that he was seeing in his home life was not what he wanted for his future. And so he just, as a 4 or 5 year old kid, decided that I'm going to do it differently. And so my dad was the first person in his entire family to go to college. Um, you know, Comparing that with my mom's situation, very similarly, my mom grew up in Southampton County. You live in VA, you already know Southampton County is the middle of nowhere, Boykins, Virginia. I think to this day, there's maybe a few hundred people that live there. My mom was I would describe it as a subsistence farmer. She was the youngest of 5 kids, but a first generation, what would become a first generation college student. She had older siblings that went to school. But my mom at age 7, I think, um, knew that she did not want to farm. And I'm telling you, to this day, my mom doesn't have a plant in her house that isn't silk or plastic. Okay. She does not put her feet in the dirt or her hands in the dirt for any reason at all. Okay. That's how much she hated farming. When you have to do it, it's backbreaking work. You're 5 and 6 years old out there plowing fields and doing all, pulling up leaves, and snakes and frogs and stuff are jumping out. Like, she hated it. And her only escape from farm work was schoolwork. And so she decided at age 7, I think she said it was, that I cannot farm for the rest of my life. And at that time, the only thing that Black women did who weren't farmers, they were either nurses or teachers. So she said, okay, I can't be a nurse because I don't like blood. So she said, I'll be a teacher. Well, if I want to be a teacher, that means I have to go to college. We don't have any money, and we never will have any money. So the only way I'm going to go to college is to get a scholarship. And the only way I'm going to get a scholarship is to either be number 1 or number 2 in my class. So she was number 1 in her class from that point on until she graduated high school. And until recently, I just found this out, I think sometime last year. I was recounting that story to her because it's a constant source of inspiration to me, that focus to do that. What I didn't realize was she kept that conversation she had with herself to herself. She didn't want to tell anybody else that was her plan, because she didn't want anybody to replicate that plan and possibly, ace her out of the 2 spots that she believed were the only 2 opportunities to to go to college.
Wow.
The interesting thing about that is everybody in my family who had gone to college, and that would have been some of her aunts and uncles and her older siblings,
Mm-hmm.
went to Virginia State, Norfolk State, or Hampton.
Okay.
Right. That was, and so that's what she thought. I think she was probably going to do Norfolk State. That's what she was thinking. Her high school guidance counselor said, I think you should look elsewhere. And so she told her about this school, Trinity College, that was in Durham, North Carolina. And so my mom thought she was going to a woman's college in Durham. And because her guidance counselor told her she should go somewhere not in Virginia, not realizing that Trinity College was the undergraduate institution of Duke University.
Yeah.
She didn't know, she didn't know anything about Duke. She had no idea of if its reputation or prestige, or she didn't know anything about it. She went because her counselor told her that that's where she should look at going.
Sheesh.
And she got a grant and some work study and stuff like that. So her, education was covered, and she had to, she did all of that. So that's the stock I came from, man. And so I had it much, much easier. And so when my parents created opportunities for me education wise, I understood that this was not something that I could just take lightly. I owed it to them to do as much with it as I possibly could.
Respect. Golly. Yeah. Yeah. You did. I agree. You had no choice. You had no choice.
Sure. Shout out to Southampton County too, man. I gotta show you on that. I joke about how it's the middle of nowhere, but hey, man, it birthed my mom, and I couldn't be more proud of her being from that area.
Indeed. You gotta respect that. So your Duke love came from childhood.
Yeah. It's authentic, bro. It's not. I'm not a bandwagon.
Right.
That's not my thing. I don't do bandwagons, bro.
And you did. And that was your dream.
Yeah.
It didn't come to fruition through the undergrad, but you made it happen in the law school.
Yeah.
Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
It academically, no. So it's funny, and anybody who went to law school can probably tell you this. I had a very specific idea of what I thought law school was as an academic pursuit. When I got there, I realized it was not that at all. It was a little bit disappointing. I mean, everybody knows you get one test a semester, and that's your whole grade. But it really, there was a lot more theory and just kind of, what about this? What about this? What about this? And not a lot of practical application. And that's, there's some exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's what law school is. And so I was disappointed in the academic experience of it in that regard. But I still found a way to make it teach me what I needed to teach. I'm a litigator. I like being on my feet and arguing, things like that. So, and I had done mock trial and stuff when I was in college, and we were a nationally ranked team and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I knew I wanted to be doing the litigation part of the law as soon as possible. So I got heavily involved in moot court when I was in law school, and was really successful with that while I was there. And so that's what I took from law school, was I got my argument chops ready, and my thinking on my feet skills honed while I was there. And then I also happened to be there during a very, very special time in the program, in the basketball program's history, 1999 to 2002. We won a national championship in 2001. I was in the building, Metrodome, watching it live. And so the 3 years that I was in law school were the 3 years that Jay Williams, Mike Dunleavy, and Carlos Boozer were there. Two of the last 2 years of Shane Battier, my first 2 years were Shane Battier's last 2 years. So I got to see, those guys, in their heyday. And I left, the year after I left, JJ Redick came in. So that was the era that I was there. It's a great, great, great time to be there. I saw a ton of basketball games in Cameron Indoor Stadium, man, a ton of them.
Man, I was talking about law, now I want to talk about basketball, because
Hey, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
The lore of Cameron Indoor Stadium is crazy in itself. I mean,
Yeah.
now I was blessed enough to, I was sitting courtside at VCU,
Hmm.
not the same level, but it was a VCU versus Richmond game. So it's a rivalry game. Sitting on the floor under the basket.
Yeah.
I could feel the energy, literally feel it through my body before the game started.
Hmm.
It's from whatever, the people.
Hmm.
It feels like, well, it looks like it's like that every time Cameron Indoor is open.
What I tell people is that it looks insane on television, and what I'll tell you is that as crazy as it looks on TV, that doesn't even do it justice. It is an absolute zoo, and
Word.
the best way I can describe it is this: we always play, like everybody, all the top schools will play up. They'll play some soft games at the beginning of the season, just kind of get their feet wet and all that. So it was one of those games early in the season. I forget who it was, but right before tip off, what will happen is the students will do like this little they'll just jump thing. So somebody in the pet band will hit a drum, boom, and the students will go woo, and they'll jump, boom, woo, boom, woo, and then the drum will get more and more frequent to the point that everybody is just like that, right?
Right.
So they usually time it from coming back from a commercial break before the start. So there's this there's like a spotter or whatever who stands by the scores table, and when they're like 15 seconds from coming in, they'll signal them, and so that's usually when the drum will start. It's the pet band knows all that too. So
Right.
I guess they signal too early, so the drum beat starts, and the students are doing this for like 2 minutes.
Wow.
So all the players are standing at center court waiting, and the other team's players are looking around, and you could see in their face that they were like, we might die today. Like you could see it in their face. The whole gym is shaking, and the students are down on the floor. They have the seats closest to the floor, so those bleachers go all the way around, and so you can just feel it, and it absolutely accounts for wins in that building, especially against lesser opponents. If you are not mentally prepared to
Right.
play Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium, then you are going to get embarrassed without question. I don't care how good you are. It doesn't matter. Like it's just a real special place. And Cameron's not the only place like that, but I've not been to Allen Fieldhouse, and
Right.
I'm sure that they can boast similar experiences. But it is a real thing for sure.
Cameron, it's not even that big, right? It's kind of small.
No, it's not very big, and they just put air conditioning in it my last year.
Wow.
The only reason they didn't use it during the basketball season, the only reason they put it in is because during the graduation season, commencement is at the football stadium, but the individual schools, like the law school, has a hooding ceremony. Whatever
Right.
all that stuff is in Cameron, and
Okay.
so it's May when that's going on, and it's hot outside, so they
Yeah.
had to install AC so that your grandmother coming to watch you graduate doesn't fall out in the aisle. That's the only reason they put AC in Cameron, but they don't use it during basketball
That's
season.
crazy. That's crazy. My my daughter always wanted to make it there, but I mean, she's been on the floor. My daughter's a cheerleader at
Yeah,
Virginia
yeah,
Tech.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, yeah.
She's she's experienced Duke games, and even at Virginia Tech, it's still crazy because it's Duke there. But
Yeah.
she never made it to Cameron. She never made it to Cameron.
Oh, really? I don't know why I assumed she had, because that would have
Nah,
been your opportunity to go. I'm sure she could have got
bruh, I would have been like,
you.
yeah, I'm getting in that.
Yeah.
But shoot, since we talking basketball, man, it's been almost an hour. I can't even believe it. It's that time.
Oh, hey, you'll edit out what you need to edit out, man. We just rapping, man. We just
Yeah,
rapping.
but since we're talking basketball and we're talking Duke, and I won't mention the VCU shirt that I'm wearing.
I see it.
Yeah, I figured you could, but
I mean, hey, Papa Capel coached there, so and Jeff. So
respect,
I got love for
respect.
these people.
So, off top of your head, or you might have this in your pocket, your top 5 Dookies.
Ooh, okay. Man, this and I hate doing having to do this list because there's people that I truly love. Are now you asking for my favorite or you're asking for the best 5?
You know, you can have it either way.
If I had to, if I had to, if I had to say, all right, we got to go win a Final Four. Uh, um, I'm probably going to pick Kyrie as my point guard,
Is that
even though
fair? Is that fair?
even though I believe the best floor general we've ever had was Bobby Hurley, and the second best floor general we've ever had is Tommy Amaker. So, but man, I mean, again, oh, I still think I probably because I mean, you just can't. He could nobody could guard Kyrie. People forget he played 8 games and then got hurt, and he played 2 more in the tournament or 3 more in the tournament, and nobody could stop him. He just was. So I'm picking Kyrie as my point guard. Um, the 2 guard position is much closer than I would thought it would have been. I'm picking Jay Williams because, like Kyrie, when he was in his bag, there was nothing you could do. Um, he he edges out JJ Redick at the 2 spot because JJ was just an assassin. But I would definitely JJ would be my 6th man for sure. That's my 2 guard. 3 spot isn't even close. Grant Hill, greatest Duke player ever. That is what it is. The 4 spot is going to go to mm, mm, you, you're not gonna like this. I'm surprised I'm even saying it, but the 4 spot is gonna go to Danny Ferry.
I'm not mad at that. I get it.
I was recently reminded Danny Ferry had 58 points in a game, bruh. No Duke player has ever scored 58 points a game.
Yeah.
He was player of the year that year. He just and he was 6'10", 6'10", and just his game was ugly, but he was tough. So that's my power forward, and then my center is Christian Laettner.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And you did say Grant Hill was the great. You said the greatest or your favorite? Grant Hill.
He used to be my favorite, but I feel like I just had so many good memories of being in the building when Jay Williams played, and just there were and back then it wasn't on TV nearly as much as they are now. There just wasn't as access to watch as many games, and so there was a lot of games that Jay Williams played in where he just did all this amazing stuff that wasn't on television.
Mm.
So he nostalgically, like he just conjures up the fondest memories of Duke basketball for me. Um, but yeah, that's. I think Grant Hill is the greatest player to ever play at Duke, without question. Yeah, the greatest player.
Great. See, I'm nitpicking now. It's because I've always thought that people would say Christian Laettner because
He is the most accomplished
okay.
player. But I think just like basketball skill wise, Grant Hill is the best player that ever played. Christian Laettner is arguably you could if you're looking at just success wins. I mean, the guy he went to the Final Four every year he was in college.
Mm-hmm.
So and he people forget that he embarrassed Shaq and he embarrassed Alonzo Mourning. Like he put those guys out there when he faced them. He was just that kind of winner, a very important player in our program for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Now the most gifted, I think the most gifted player, and we'll see if history bears this out. But people are gonna be able to make the argument that Jason Tatum
I
may
knew
go down.
that's who you were gonna say.
That guy, man, listen, that guy he is the truth.
Yeah.
The truth. Oh man, I miss him so terribly on our squad. I do.
I can respect that. I mean, and Tatum, just speaking on Tatum, he got a chance to flourish, when Kyrie
Yeah.
got hurt, and
No,
he
no, no. He was after Kyrie. He was after
no
Kyrie.
no
Jason.
no. Um, I'm in Boston.
Oh, you mean in Boston? Oh, yeah, yeah. Of course. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, of course.
When
Of
he
course.
got hurt, and
Yeah.
he got a chance to flourish, and I think people, yeah, it was just the tip of the iceberg. He kind of fell back a little bit, and then
And now he's off.
I mean he's still so young. He's what, 21 now, right?
21 years old, maybe 22 now. But here's the thing, and I remember this, man. This is why I knew Danny Ainge is one of the best GMs. If you remember that year, everybody was trying to figure out who's going to go number one. Is it going to be Lonzo, Jason Tatum, or Josh Jackson? Give me a break.
Wow, yeah.
And I knew that Boston was going to take Tatum when I think they traded back, or
Mm,
it was something that they did, that they brought in Josh Jackson for a workout, but I think that was a smoke screen. I think they knew Jason Tatum was the best player in that draft. The Lakers they had to pick Lonzo because that was the story,
right.
but Jason Tatum he was ready to play day one. I was biased because I watched him play, but I'm honest about my guys. Not every Duke guy has a game that's ready for the NBA right when they leave. But Tatum, like, he just had it. He had everything. And when they picked him, I was like, I knew it. I was like, he's gonna be a beast, and he is, man. That guy. Yeah, he might be my favorite player in the NBA just because I just love everything about his game.
Hmm. Really?
Yeah.
Fair. Wow, that's a big statement.
Yeah,
Favorite?
he can do it all, man. He can do it from any spot on the floor. He can do it from any spot on the floor. If he was the only good player on his team, he would still give you 25.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was still give you 25.
A lot of players can give you buckets when there's nobody else around, and then they clam up when their team is not even as good, but
Hmm.
they're on a higher level or on a better team, they disappear.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say he disappeared, but at one point, but it seemed like everybody had to take a step back
Yeah. When Kyrie came back. Yeah.
when Kyrie came to shine. So
Yep.
for him shine, everybody kind of fell backwards a little bit.
I mean,
And
that's the politics of professional sports, man. You got to give the guy that's got the biggest contract. He's got to, what else you paying him for? He's got to be the guy to take the shots. He's got to be the guy to run the ship. I mean, that's the politics of professional sports.
true. And yet here we are at this point, and Boston is still one of the best teams in the East. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they're going to sit for the next few years. And they earn that. Like, they earn that.
And you watch, they're gonna flip Gordon Hayward's contract for some cap flexibility and some more young players.
Yeah.
They're gonna stay there. They got Brown locked in, they got Tatum locked in, they got Kemba locked in. That's all they need. Everybody else is disposable.
Yep. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I guess we got to mention, since we talk basketball quite a bit, we got to mention your football team. On a
Yeah.
positive note, nothing negative. The Atlanta Falcons. I just see, yeah.
Oh,
That's,
yeah. Oh, I thought it was a question. Okay, no, no.
no,
Listen,
that was a good response in itself, though. That was very.
yeah, yeah. Atlanta has so the funny thing about Atlanta as a sports town, people like to bag on it as not being a good sports town. And people don't realize, one, if you're a native Atlantan, you ride for all the Atlanta teams, whether you are at the game or not. You
Okay.
ride. Like, the city goes hard for our teams. There's a lot of people that live here. Most of the people that live in the Atlanta area are not from here. When we moved from Atlanta in 1988, beginning of 1988, there were just over 2 million people in the metro area. Now there's almost 6. So,
Hmm.
you've almost tripled in size. It ain't that much procreating going on, bro. Like, most of the people that live here are from somewhere else. So you got a lot of people that live here who don't have a birth tie to any of the sports teams. So that can manifest itself in a lot of weird ways with attendance and
Right.
all that stuff. But like I said, the city and the natives of this city go hard for their Falcons. The other unique thing about Atlanta is, it's very much a chocolate city. So when you do go to a sporting event and look in the stands, you're going to see 40, 50, sometimes 60%, brown faces. You do not see that in any other sports city. You just don't. I had Atlanta Hawks season tickets for a total of about 10 years. And I mean, it is the most diverse sports population in American sports. It just, or at least in the NBA, it just is. So it's a very, very unique sports town. It's a great place to be from, and it's a great city. If you can be a star on your team, the city will love you. Atlanta's biggest issue has been they've just not been managed well across the board historically. They've just not been managed well from the ownership and front office standpoint. So, when you get someone that you love, then you don't treat them right and they go elsewhere. Or you get someone, you get a squad that can do a little something, but you draft or you trade or you whatever, and you just don't quite get it right. So that's Atlanta's bigger issue, is the teams haven't been managed all that well, generally speaking, with exceptions here or there.
You're a Ty Gurley guy?
Say that again.
You pro Ty Gurley or?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I like everybody have concerns about his knee, but I don't think that him not getting the ball towards the end of last season had anything to do with his knee, and just I think the Rams staff just brain farted, to be honest with you. If his knee is healthy, then we are about to be a problem for the entire league next year, because Todd Gurley is a bad boy. We watched him at Georgia for a minute, and the guy is he's nasty. And the season he had 3 seasons ago with the Rams was just catching the ball in the backfield. He can block, he can pass protect. That's been a sore spot with our backfield for the past few years. Even when we went to the Super Bowl, we just Freeman is, as hard as he played, like he cannot pick up that blitz. So I'm excited for the prospect, and it's a low risk move for us, man. I mean, manageable contract. It's a 1-year deal. We got 2 guys here already that have shown improvement a little bit on the field. They're not stars, but they can get the job done. So if it doesn't work out, we didn't really lose much. But if it does, we can go give him his money, he get a bigger bag at the end of next year, and I'm all right with that.
Can't knock that at all.
Oh no.
Get the people your contact for the Confectionist Bakery.
Confectionist Bakery, yeah.
Confectionist Bakery. I'm sorry.
So our website is confectionistbakeryatl.com. That's confectionist ATL.com. All of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is Confect Bakery, CONFECT Bakery. Yeah, we're on there quite a bit. We're running a Mother's Day special, 15% off all orders between now and May 4th. And we're cutting it off at May 4th because Mother's Day is like the busiest postal day in the year. So we need a little extra time to get stuff in the mail to make sure it gets there on Saturday, so that your mom can get her cake or her cake bonds or whatever you decide to order. But yeah, so we're running that promo. Coupon code is MOM, MOM. So if you type that in at checkout, you'll get 15% off your order. We ship everywhere in the United States and U.S. territories. So we can get it pretty much anywhere you want it to go. And yeah, that's our deal.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join me today, brother. Yeah, that's about it from Monty Garside.
Yeah, man. Always good to talk to you, man. And give my regards to your family, man. Stay out there and be safe.
No doubt. You as well, bro. Peace. Thank y'all for checking out Source and Company.